we could have lost $10 million.
How do you think about moats?
All right, are you willing to spend $1 million on tools?
None of them are sexy or earth-shattering.
We have all of the money.
I'm in the trash business. We've got a lot.
It's like you're trying to get inside of a castle, but the drawbridge is up and they're shooting arrows at you and nobody wants you in the castle.
There's two ways to use your sword, right? There's killing blows and then there's getting points.
We will absolutely use that as a sword. 99% of the time, that is not enough.
You're playing chess against a grandmaster here. It's like I can see every move before you do it.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 18 of the Operators Podcast. This is Mike with Simple Modern. We've also got Sean with Ridge and Matt with Pillowcase and Lomi. We're all here, and there will be a drop-in from our fourth Jason with Hexclad here in a few minutes. Today we are going to be talking about a topic that's a pretty critical one, which is how do you build competitive advantages in your business? And I'd like to start with my favorite quote on this subject. The term that we use for a competitive advantage that's sustainable is a lot of times we use the word moat. And I think that actually originates with this quote from our friend Warren Buffett. Here's what he says. He says, "We think of every business that they look at to invest in as an economic castle, and castles are subject to marauders. And in capitalism, with any castle, you have to expect that millions of people out there are thinking about ways to take your castle away. Then the question is, what kind of moat do you have around that castle that protects it?" So basically what we're talking about today is how do you build something that you can defend? Because anytime, and we've all seen this, we've all seen businesses that kind of have a short amount of success, and then the clones come in, then the market share gets eroded, then the pricing power goes away, and they're kind of a one-hit wonder or a blip on the radar. Obviously, we want to build businesses that have real enterprise value and last. So I guess to start off, guys, like how do you think about moats? Matt, let's start with you. How do you think about moats and competitive advantages?
I mean, first, I think about them a lot, particularly with Lomi. Like it's a moat building exercise. Like when you're trying to create a completely new category. I actually wrote about one of the first emails I ever sent out to my little newsletter was on competitive advantage, because I think in consumer, I don't know what you guys think, but I think in consumer, competitive advantage is really hard to do. There's not very many moats that are easy for consumer businesses. Like most consumer products companies, we don't have access to network effects. We just don't. So the easy one for most consumer companies is get to scale, some kind of scale economies, whether that's an impact on cost or maybe on your ability to explore. I know, Sean, you've done this really well with Ridge. As you guys have gotten bigger, your category expansion, your ability to go out and explore, that is a competitive advantage, right? A smaller competitor will not have the scale to do that. They don't have the cash, they don't have the customer knowledge, they don't have the inherent knowledge, all that stuff. So for us, the way I look at this whole thing is what makes sense, strategically makes sense for the business. So for Lomi, we spend a lot of time on IP, lots of IP. So patents, R&D, all that stuff. We spend time on policy. So I know we've talked about it, but I'm in the trash business. Waste management is kind of our enemy. That's who we're going against. Waste management is a $2 trillion a year global industry, lots and lots of legislation. So we really pay attention to legislation, city, county, state, federal. We do that both in Canada and the US. And then I also for us, I don't know if this applies for you guys. I'd love to hear your opinion, but we have contract modes. So when we designed and built Lomi, right? Just standing up that supply chain, it's not an easy thing to go replicate. So you can't call our manufacturer and have them make you a Lomi knockoff. They are completely locked up. So in order to make a Lomi knockoff,
exclusivity. Can you elaborate on that, Matt? How did you lock them up? Can other manufacturers replicate what they've done with Lomi?
Yeah, and they are now. It's a much higher bar, right? So to make a Lomi, you now need to go buy one, bring it to another manufacturer, say reverse engineer this, okay, great. That manufacturer is going to turn around and say like, all right, are you willing to spend the $1 million on tools to make this thing? And like most, people on Amazon aren't going to spend that kind of cash to make a white label, like to make an Amazon product, right? So like the only real competitors I get are real companies who are willing to that have the capital to invest in like manufacturing lines and tools. And, so like locking up the manufacturer for us, like that was one of the first things we did. And we did that. That's partly there was like long time relationship with this manufacturer. And partly it was like, we were going to them with like tens of millions of dollars in business and saying, you can have it, but you cannot, like literally, like you're going to sign your kids away. You cannot ever make another one of these for anybody else. Yeah. Right. And that was a good one. Cause that, like, if you look at it now, I have one meaningful competitor in this space. And there's others trying, but they are not making very good things. So like,
tell us about the IP, Matt. Like how restrictive is the IP that you've been able to create? How defensible? What have you learned there?
I'm a big fan of IP. Like I love what Sean does at Ridge, and I can't wait to hear from Sean today. I'm a big fan of IP with the caveat that I think a lot of people blow their brains out on IP that they're never going to use. Right. So like the number one rule of IP is it's a sword. It's not a shield. So if you're going to look at IP as a moat builder, like it's not a good defensive moat. IP is like, I'm going out to attack everyone that comes anywhere near me. And like these assets that I own. So, for Lomi, like years of R&D. So there's process patents, there's design patents, there's utility patents, there's trademarks, there's copyright. We've got software, hardware patents on like some of our firmware and algorithms. Like we've got a lot in process. And that's just because like we're doing things that nobody's really done before, or we're doing them in novel ways. And we look at it like we will absolutely use that as a sword when it makes sense. Now, I also have other IP, not very expensive IP, where we own it, but we don't really go out and attack with it. Mm-hmm. So there's other value to that.
A couple of points that you made, Matt, that I think are worth just emphasizing. I really think one of the reasons why we're talking about moats today is in e-commerce and in consumer, moats are hard, I think. And part of why moats are so freaking hard is because of China. And China, it used to be that if you had a unique, level of quality in your product, that you could just kind of win the market and you could count on that being enough, that you just had a superior product. But now China is so good at being able to deconstruct quality products, even products that sometimes have IP around them, and find solutions where they go around that without violating the IP, that it's really made some of the things that probably felt like moats 50 years ago or 70 years ago, they're not today. And so I think, anyway, it's a great point. Okay, so Sean, on the IP issue, I know this has been something you guys have, to use Matt's words, you guys have pulled out the sword. So tell us about, what does it look like for you to build moats with Ridge today?
Yeah, well, first let's talk about China as a concept, right? What I'll say is capitalism cuts both ways. So we moved manufacturing to China because we want, I think really it was like we want to find the lowest cost manufacturing. We did it to Japan in the past, Korea in the past, and now China's losing manufacturing to Vietnam, Indonesia, other countries. But that was us, or I shouldn't even say us. It was just the entire industry, the entire world getting lazy, trying to, find the next 5 points of margin or 10 points of margin. And then it creates a bunch of people who know how to make stuff in China, and they don't give a about your thing. They're trying to build their own thing, right? And, we can point to, knockoff factories in China and be like, oh, they're evil or bad, or like they're anti-American or whatever. But it's the same as, there's 10 buy now, pay later apps. It's like, it's the exact same thing, like software capitalism, cloning thing. So while it is true that the bulk of IP violations are coming out of China. And I think what Mike was talking about was a design around. Someone gets a design patent that only covers the look and feel of something and not the function of something, right? Design patents can only cover look and feel. So you show them a photo and be like, okay, I'll just make it look different, right? And that's why there's tons of similar things in the market. And then you get utility patents to cover the function of something, right? Like Yeti's water bottle keeps it cool because of these functional things. That's just really hard to prove in court because you have to explain to 12 random people you pull off the sidewalk, this is how this thing works. So anyway.
And as a side note on that, insulation, vacuum insulation was patented and has come out of patent. And so no one can patent it, which is in our industry makes it super interesting, is that the core technology, I mean, if somebody had vacuum insulation patented right now, they would make $1 gazillion, but that's not how it works. Somebody else patented it and didn't actually maximize the opportunity. It fell out of patent, and now everybody's able to use it. There's no way to defend that.
Are you guys familiar with Gore? Yeah, Gore-Tex?
Yeah.
Have you seen the company?
No, I don't know who actually makes it.
Teach us about it.
So Gore-Tex is made by a company. It's called Gore Industries. Gore. Dude, they're an IP machine, right? And effectively their business is just like they come up with materials and other stuff and they license it out. And then like you've got Arc'teryx will have like Gore-Tex jackets. Patagonia will have Gore-Tex. Solomon makes Gore-Tex running shoes and mitts and everything. So like, and I think I heard they do like 400 million a year.
Wow.
Right. So like there's all these types of businesses in consumer that most of us in like our little echo chamber of our corner of the internet, we aren't even aware of, right? Like most people aren't aware of like Lululemon's patent portfolio.
Yeah. Or I think
like they don't think of that.
3M's the best example because I think they do 20 billion a year in revenue. They're like a Fortune 100 company, and only you know them from sticky notes and you know them from you hang on your walls. But like they have, if you buy something, it violates a 3M patent. That's just like the way the world works.
Does it have adhesive on it? You violated 3M in some way.
Yeah. And but let's talk about the concept of IP being a sword. IP is worthless unless you prosecute. So you can have the best IP on earth, but like as soon as one person knows they're not going to get sued, the entire world knows they're not going to get sued, right? And it's why companies spend a ton of money on legal. And there's no cheap way to do legal, right? Right now we're in an International Trade Commission injunction. We're suing a bunch of infringers who are based in China and essentially getting them to stop importing, right? And we're at a huge advantage in our space because there's no legitimate players, right? We have all of the money. So, the cost to defend an ITC case, the minimum cost to do it correctly is $400,000 because you have to pay your lawyer and you have to pay experts to show up, and experts cost $200,000. That's just like what they charge to come be an expert. They're professional witnesses, basically. And we're a real company with real domestic industry. We have hundreds of employees or whatever, and we have building we just bought. And so we get to just roll people over because there's no legitimate competitors in the space, right? So we're sharpening our sword right now, and we're continuing to get better and better at it. But IP is not like I have a patent, we're done, right? We just settled a patent dispute that took 3 years. It's like, it cost us $2 million. So it's like having the patent takes a really long time to actually, it is a moat. I would say it's the widest, most shallow moat, unless you're willing to dig that moat deep.
We actually, I don't know, Sean, if I ever told you this, but this isn't one of them, but like, so for our this case business, we invented this material. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a patent on it because it was too similar to something else that was in market. But we have patents on like the process to use the material to make these. What we also did was we created another case. It's really popular. Like it's a clear case. So like the back is clear so you can see the phone. And then the border is made from an elastomer. So it's like a hard plant-based plastic with a soft plant-based plastic as a bumper. So that combination of those two materials, we locked the shit out of that thing up. Like that thing is just like, so what happened is like we launched the world's first compostable phone case. Then we came out with like this clear case, and the industry sells a lot of these things. And a whole bunch of people tried to like knock it off, and we went after them, and like every single one of them backed down because every single one of them was like, we don't want to fight this battle. Like this is just it's a waste of money for everyone. So like that's a best case scenario when you use it as a sword, is that they just back down.
90% of the time they're going to fold. Just the potential cost, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, especially like good, like real companies. Like we were going after like $100 million plus companies, and they all of them were like, nobody wins in these. We're out. We're good.
Yeah, and especially, there's two ways to use your sword, right? There's killing blows, and then there's getting points in fencing, right? And getting points in fencing is using your IP as a source of income. That's what 3M does, right? Like, 3M doesn't stop Ford from making cars. What they do is like, okay, give us $1 for every car you make. Like that's a real agreement they have, right? Yep. And that's IP as a source of revenue. That's what
we do. That.
Yeah. And like the killing blow is if you go to Apple and you say, you violate our thing, you have to stop. Like, we're not going to stop until you stop selling, or you have to give us lost profits because we could be selling it. And those are the things that take 10 years, 20 years. Yep. It's way easier to just on the table be like, look, we believe you. We're not going to go to battle. And, for Ridge, we're only trying to do killing blows. It's a lot more difficult. Like, I don't want a $5 royalty for every knockoff sold. I just don't want you. I want you off the market. Right. And that's why it's a taller task. But to ground the conversation,
going after knockoffs, like that's a whole other, that's a category of like, that's, like the point of Moats, right, is we all have competition, and the entire point of competitive advantage in competition is like, it's either defense or offense relative to your competition, like loosely. So like what you're talking about, Sean, is the thing that Mike started with, which is like, it's so easy for knockoff products to come in because that's what we made. Like China's the world's greatest 3D printing machine. So like, that's just what they are. So like what you're talking about is knockoffs. Then there is IP as what you just hit on, which is like, this is actually a business model, right? And you don't see that as often, right? Like WL Gore and Associates, I think is the actual name of the company. Like that's one example. Like we do this with Pila, like our materials, we licensed it to Kalo for their little silicone rings, right? Like they make compostable workout rings. And we're doing this with a bunch of other like weird stuff, like medical applications. Like there's so many things that like we take our material and like we'll license it to these agreements. So like, but that's a long term, like it takes so long to build those businesses. They're not pure consumer, but it's born out of our consumer business.
We are big fans of SendLane here at the Operators Podcast, and we want to let you know about an event they have coming up, their roundtable event in San Diego. We are going to be filming a live Operators Pod on September 18th. So we hope that you can join us there. We would love for you to come and be a part of the roundtable and the whole event, see us film a live pod, and also learn more about SendLane, which is a great option to help you with all of your email and SMS delivery needs. If you are a part of our Slack group, and many of the people who are listening to the pod know this, that we have a Slack group for people that are running businesses, and the first 10 people that directly message Jimmy will be getting free tickets to the Commerce Roundtable. So you heard that right. If you go into the Slack channel and you message Jimmy Kim directly, then if you're one of the first 10 people, you'll get a free ticket to the Commerce Roundtable. We'd love to see you there. Yeah. Well, we've touched on this before. Sean, you've made this point. It's easier than ever before to stand up a business. You can stand up a business in 30 minutes almost, like because of Shopify and the ease of the tools, but it's harder than maybe ever before to build a defensible business for the same reasons. Like somebody's made this observation. I think it's a good one. The faster a business can grow, the faster it can be collapsed, or the less defensible it is a lot of times. And so we can kind of worship growth, but a lot of times if you can scale something exponentially, then it can come down in a hurry. And typically businesses with really strong moats, they take longer to build. As you're saying, it takes a lot of freaking digging and it takes a lot of money to build it. But then as that thing gets ramped up, it's really hard for competitors to disrupt it. I'll share just one from Simple Modern. For us, the most obvious and easiest one is licensing. So we have licensing agreements with pretty much everybody at this point. It all goes back to getting the University of Oklahoma, which was my alma mater, to give us what's called a local license. And then we gradually were able to build that out to all the colleges and then added pro sports, which I know Sean just jumped on that train with the NFL. And we added Disney and all this other stuff. And licensing has been tremendous for us. But licensing is literally like they give you a contract that's you can sell these things and you can sell them in these places, and that's it. And this type of product, these places, and that's it. That's all you're able to do. And they try to keep it where each channel. So, for example, Amazon, where maybe they have 2 or 3 people that even have the right or the ability to sell in that channel. So they impose these kind of oligopolies so that there's not a lot of price competition and people beating each other up, because the people that you're doing the licensing for, they're incentivized for the sales prices to be high so they can get good royalties. And it's interesting. I've told people, to go back to a castle analogy, I've told people about licensing that it's like you're trying to get inside of a castle, but the drawbridge is up and they're shooting arrows at you and nobody wants you in the castle. But if you do get in the castle, then all of a sudden you get treated like the king because you're now making the money and they don't have any risk. Like you're basically just helping fill their bank account. So incredibly difficult to get started. And part of the reason why it's so hard to get started in licensing is because to get someone to say, yes, okay, I'm gonna make you a licensee for us. They have to believe you can sell their product, but you can't prove you can sell their product unless you have the license. And so it's kind of this, this kind of chicken or the egg thing. But anyway, it's been a really powerful thing for us. There's several others I could talk about.
Yeah. So I think, Mike, like what you did with licensing, what Simple Modern did with licensing, I know, Sean, you've done this as well. We've done it with Pila Case where like we made the assumption, here's a good example actually, of where licensing is defensible, but maybe not as much as you think it is. So Pila Case, phone cases, mega competitive category, massive category, licensed to all high hell. Like if you're Disney, there's all Disney properties are on some kind of phone case somewhere. So you would think like somebody owns that, can't get in. Well, we can go to any of them and we can just say, yeah, but none of you have a phone case that is compostable and sustainable, and that would fall outside the little box that they contracted with like another massive phone case company, right? Mm-hmm. So it didn't take a whole lot for us to pierce that defense in this industry.
Yeah, they look for 2 things really. They look for really they're 2 sides of the same coin. Are you reaching new customers with my IP that are going to bring in more money? And so one way you can make that argument is, hey, I am driving a ton of traffic. Ridge, one of the arguments Sean made to the NFL, I'm sure, was, hey, Ridge wallets are searched for more than the term men's wallet. And so there's a lot of traffic that we own. We are the retailer. And if you want to be sold in this retailer, which is a significant number of people, you need to license us. And then the other argument is we're in kind of a part of this category. We're a particular unique part of this category that you're not represented in at all. Like, hey, the eco-friendly crowd, they're all buying this kind of stuff and you're not represented at all. And if you want to reach them, you need to partner with Pila Case.
Yeah, exactly.
So want to welcome Jason to the show from Hexclad. Jason has been off conquering the cookware world undoubtedly, but Jason, we're talking about Moats. Would love to hear, what do you think when you think about trying to build sustainable competitive advantages with Hexclad and Moats? How are you trying to do it?
Well, I might have missed this. You guys might have hit this earlier, but what do I always start with? It start by having
good product,
superior product. It's always about a superior product. That's
that defensible, Jason?
Absolutely.
Like, can I challenge you on that? Like,
how?
So hang on though. Can nobody make a Hexclad pan? Are you the only ones capable?
Well, the second part of that mode is that we have patented technology. We have many
That's it.
patents, of course.
Yeah.
However, um, there's also the manufacturing process is quite complicated, and
Yep.
even without the patents, the know-how to making the product is there are knockoffs. If you go search, even some of them show up on Amazon. The product does not perform as
Are they
well.
good though?
Um,
Like
it
they
doesn't
can't be
perform as
good.
well. I mean, you can look at the,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can look at the reviews, right? So, great product, IP to protect it, um, and I think the incredible number of happy customers that you've built around is also a moat. The reviews are a moat. The number of stars on your product is a moat. So those are a few that just come to mind to me. None of them are sexy or earth shattering.
I wonder if you can like almost think of like customers. So one of the like the traditional like the scholarly, competitive advantage things is network effects. Like everybody talks about that as like it's such a great moat. And in consumer, you just don't have any natural ones like in a physical good. But there is something you're saying, Jason, that I think is interesting for people like for other brand builders, which is like having a raving fan base of customers, like really loyal, like they are fans, supers, like super fans. Not like I gave you a good review, but I am a super. I own everything Hexclad makes. That there is defensibility to that. Like they're unlikely to switch.
Yeah. Well, it's the net promoter score idea. It's one of the reasons I like net promoter score as an idea is that when somebody's like, yeah, I had an experience that I'd rate as a 9 or a 10, my likelihood to tell other people is a 9 or a 10. To your point, Matt, it's just very difficult to peel off those customers from somebody else or for them to be peeled off from your brand because they just have no incentive or reason to be open to switching. Yeah, your pan may be great, but I'm a 10 out of 10 happy with my Hexclad pans. So, good luck pulling me off of that.
Yeah, like a
Um,
great product on its own is not defensible. I think people need to understand that. Like the D2C world has been full. I tell you, like the thing we've all been watching the carnage. The D2C world for the last, I think, decade has been full of, hey, it's a good product. I don't know that there's definitely great products out there. But what they try to do is make like the user experience better. Like I think somebody told them that if you just make the user experience better, that is on its own defensible and like it'll work. And that showed up in consumer as like the unboxing, like
mhm.
how fancy can the packaging get, how fancy, like that whole, and like look at the content, all that stuff was around like when you're talking competitive advantage, like that's the bucket that I would just like, that's user experience. In consumer, that is not defensible.
Mhm.
99% of the time, that is not enough, right? What Jason hit on is like, nope, it's a great product, no question. It's also got a ton of like it's got IP wrapped up in it. But I think there's that third one that I don't see talked about enough. And I think this applies to everyone here. And I really think it applies to you, Sean, is this like inherent knowledge moat, right? So like there's the cultural recipe that happens in like you wind up making in companies, and most companies can't even tell you what the hell is in the recipe, right? Like what's in the soup. But like Ridge, like Sean, your and Connor's like marketing savvy is a moat. Like there's so many little things that you guys know that 99% of other people in consumer do not. You've
Team is a
forgotten more
moat.
than they'll ever know.
Yeah,
Team is a
Team,
moat.
team is right, but
team.
it's the inherent knowledge within the team over
You're saying
time.
like kind of institutional knowledge that gets
Yeah,
built
it's
on a
it's
team over
entirely a
time.
moat, right? Like
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that it's not documentation. It's not how well your SOPs. It's not like a Google sheet. It's not those things. It's literally like what you talked about. Like to make a hexclad pan, there is the process itself is like complicated. There's probably some art to it. You sort of need to know like what to do to pull it off, right? Like that is institutional knowledge, inherent knowledge. That's
Yeah.
a moat.
use Fulfill's accounting integration to be audit compliant and ready. If you want to sell your business or you want to go public or whatever else, you're going to get audited. And it's not by the IRS, it's by somebody you pay. It's like you're paying for the worst health exam ever. They're going to check every little nook and cranny of your business to make sure you're not stealing money and buying vineyards and airplanes. If you want that to go as easy as possible, it's not going to be easy, but as easy as possible, you should use Fulfill's accounting integration. The founder of Fulfill is hands-on. I mean, this guy's probably worth $40 million and he's texting you. He's trying to jump in. He's trying to get on calls with you. The hands-on approach is good whenever you pay money for a service. And he will make sure that you're integrated correctly with Fulfill's accounting integration. I'm on it. Works great. Tag team to Jason.
We implemented Fulfill as well for inventory management, and we had a big mess on our hands last year. Big mess. And I'm not hearing any nonsense from my team. Like, you know when something is going well, when you're just not hearing about the problems from your team anymore. Like it's not like, oh, everyone's saying anything is great. It's like all of a sudden I don't get a weekly call or text or Slack about a problem because our inventory is dialed and we are sending product to multiple channels, multiple countries. Not as many units as Mike Beckham, but and honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. And there were things that we wanted them to do, and we pushed them hard to do it. And it's like a big back and forth, and then we got there. So like you're right, the team at Fulfill, they're very hands-on, and that they care about getting the results that you want, and those are the vendors that you want to speak to.
Yeah, so we're talking about a lot of stuff. I think there's 3 moats. I think there's experience, which could be institutional knowledge in your organization, or just the fact that like we used to run an agency, so we just know how to make money, right? The second one is money. Money lets you just buy whatever you want. It's like, hey, it'd be a great moat if you wanted to, if you're like, hey, I want to have monopoly on land in Manhattan, enough money can get that monopoly done, right? Experience can't. It's just enough money gets that done. The third one is relationships, right? You talk about contracts with your manufacturer, right? And really, that's just a relationship. You have a really solid relationship with somebody who will help you. And relationships could also be influence, right? Kim Kardashian has a moat because she has a relationship with all of her fans on Instagram or whatever else. But when I think about Ridge, I think about those 3 moats. It's like, what does my experience say? And like, how does that provide clarity with where we're going? I have money now. What can I buy to make my business better or more defensible, right? And the third one is, who can I meet that I can help them, they can help me build this better business. So I think they've gone to 3 buckets, but I'd love to hear your guys' take on that.
I think the money thing is like the classic scale economies of scale thing, right? Like the more that you get, the more that you can invest in. And that's either like reducing cost, or what you're describing, Sean, is like you're taking the money and you're turning it into other assets, like other things, right? Exploration.
Yeah. And I was going to post about this today, but there's only a couple things I want to buy still with Ridge, right? So we bought Everyday Carry. That was great. We just bought a building. We're buying shares in some of our manufacturers. We're buying up and down those chains. And we're going to do a deal with an influencer to take some of their knowledge and bring it into the organization. You didn't hear me say I'm buying e-commerce brands, right? Because everything is buy it or build it. And I'm amazing at building e-commerce brands. I don't need any help. I don't need to acquire any e-commerce brands. I need to buy things that I don't have the experience in. I don't have that internal knowledge on, right? I had no fucking idea how to make a blog or a community or anything like that. I had to buy everydaycarry.com, right?
Well,
but I didn't. Oh, go ahead,
John. No, go ahead. Keep going. You're on a good one.
I was just going to say, I didn't buy the watch company that came to us or the sunglass company that came to us or X, Y, or Z, because that doesn't excite me. I can look at their business and know that I'm better at doing it than they are, right? And no offense to them that, they've built a great business, but it's like, you're playing chess against a grandmaster here. It's like, I could see every move before you do it, right? But I've never played volleyball before. So you could be the world's worst volleyball player, but I don't know how to fucking play. So you have knowledge, internal knowledge that I don't have, right? And I can use my second moat, money, to acquire that knowledge internally. Bernard and Everyday Carry has been like the perfect example of that internally.
I once heard somebody I can't tell you where it was, guys. I would love to give this person credit. Someone described Apple's true competitive advantage was just free cash flow.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, and not in like everything they do, but I really wish I knew. They were talking about like, why did the iPhone win against Android? And some people could say like, well, it hasn't won. It's just like how you count, right? But this person's argument was that the reason that the iPhone is so damn successful and that they're able to do everything and that all the Android competition can't, is that on a per unit basis, Apple generates so much freaking free cash flow from selling iPhones that the other companies don't have the resources to pour into competing with Apple. They gobble, and it's actually like, actually, here's the point. They gobble up the category's free cash flow.
So
right?
here's one thing that's really interesting, just as an example of that, Matt, because I think we're riffing on this idea of money can be used as a moat, but
For sure.
if you do it right. And here's one small example of exactly what you're saying. How do you think Apple gets their iPhones from China to the US? They don't put them on ships. They put them on planes.
Mm-hmm.
And air shipment is way more expensive than sea shipment. But when you've got the kind of margin per unit that Apple has on their phones, you airship those puppies. Let's just talk about what are the ramifications of that. How much does that pull out of sitting in inventory because you can be that much quicker and much more just in time? How much more up to date does that make your release when you release it? From, you know what I mean? Like there's all of these ways where that makes their business better because of a simple thing like they don't care about spending $5 or $7 a unit to airship it. It doesn't matter.
It's actually, it even forces their whole supply chain. So in the mobile accessory world, if you want to be in market at the same time as Apple dropping their phone, so like if you're one of those big players, you also have to airship all of your stuff because that's the speed that Apple's going at. One of the reasons that we built domestic manufacturing for Pillowcase was so that when the iPhone launches, there is this like 3-week window where they sell a god awful amount of them. Right. And I wanted to capture our piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was why.
Matt, you said the whole mobile accessory market has to airship them. Well, unless they do it locally, right? Which is like the hack you saw. You're saving $5 a shipment around release windows. You have that much more margin. You be that much more competitive.
Well, we can also we can react to it's a bunch of stuff, right? It's like react to the trends. And the thing that nobody knows when Apple releases a phone is which one of those 3 phones is going to be the thing they sell the most of.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a traditional company buying inventory in the phone case world, you're literally guessing. I think it's going to be the middle one this year, right? Well, one year it was the little one that freaking took off.
Yeah.
Other example of this, and then I want to introduce another topic that's closely related with Sean talking about manufacturing. Like when you have a bunch of cash, you don't have to buy as tight and you don't have to be as right. So to your point, Matt, you can have 3 different sizes and say, I don't know which one's going to win, but I don't have to bet. I don't have to cut this thing really tight. I can buy big on all 3 sizes. I'll have enough of the winner. Yeah, I'm going to have some extra of the other 2 sizes, but that's okay. It doesn't kill me to have that extra capital invested there. And there have been countless times I've seen in our business, if we can carry more inventory, we can capture more demand. It's just that simple. It's not always the most efficient demand capture, but it's certainly possible. But I want to transition us to something Sean was saying, because I think especially in e-commerce land, like this is important. 2020, 2021, everybody's like, it's all digital. That's all that matters. It's all SaaS. Like who cares about the physical world? It's so stupid. And you know what we all learned in 21 and 22 is that the moats all exist in the physical world. You still have to move things, like the pan still has to get from China to the US, and it's got to go in a warehouse somewhere, and somebody's got to take it to their door. And people that have invested heavily in infrastructure related things, have used capital towards buying physical assets, have been really rewarded in the last 2 or 3 years, to your point, Sean, whether that's manufacturing or land or whatever else.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to take it. I want to go back to the Apple point for 1 second, guys.
Okay.
Apple has so much money and they don't get enough credit for this. I used to hate Apple. I thought they made the world's worst computers, and it's because they made shells for Intel chips, right? That's what they did for 20 years. They were just very expensive shells for Intel chips. So you got a really expensive, shitty computer. That changed like 4 years ago. They're like, yeah, we have the M1 now, right? And they built an entire chip supply chain with Taiwanese manufacturing, Chinese manufacturing, and US manufacturing. And now the M2 is the greatest computer chip of all time, like destroys Intel, destroys anything coming out of China. And they did that for fun. Like, I mean, obviously they're super strategic, and they're thinking about a post-Taiwanese world, right? Where like the US doesn't think Taiwan's important anymore, and that chip manufacturing goes down. But they have hundreds of billions of dollars to do something like that. And like, I still don't think they get enough credit for that. I think Apple's a $10 trillion company.
I agree.
I mean, everyone talks about how great Apple is. I just want to double click that, like, yeah, money as a moat. They got more money than God, man.
You got to have so much money to pay the ante on making making chips, for example. You just got to have crazy amounts of stuff on your balance sheet to even think about that.
Well, it's actually an interesting point that I think both of you are making. Not even the point, but like, it's an interesting place to go. And I'd be curious to get all of your opinions on this. But like, at what stage of business building do some of these things matter or don't matter? So like, if somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, I have a $10 million brand, how should I be thinking of like competitive advantage? Like I think the easy answer there is like what Jason said, just focus on a great product and a great customer experience. But like, if you're taking a slightly longer view, which I think all of you guys do, like none of you guys like are like, what's going to happen in the next 90 days? Like you're looking years ahead. So if you're looking years ahead and you're giving a younger or a newer like consumer entrepreneur advice on this, where do you guide them?
I'm just looking at like all the early decisions we made using Northbeam to get to where we are today, when we were like 30 million and 50 million in sales. And that's, that's sort of where we started using it heavily, and it really helped us. And I'm just thinking back to some early advice that I received from other people, not Northbeam, when our Facebook ROAS was like sub 1. And they're like, you're losing money. You cannot spend this money. And every time I think about this, I'm like, actually, if we had listened to those people, we would have destroyed the business. And and Danny and I didn't know that much back in 2020. I think we've learned a lot since then. And, without Northbeam and looking at that complete picture of everything, we really would have destroyed our business by listening to the wrong people and not at least having one source of truth in Northbeam.
I really encourage people to think about it basically at the beginning. I mean, even pre-product market fit, which this is probably going to be different than what Sean's going to say, but the reason for that being, what's the point in doing anything if you can't hang on to it? Like you're going to give your blood, sweat, and tears and pivot around to try and get to product market fit. And then it's like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about if I could defend it. And 6 months later, it's gone. And so I try to, I actually teach this stuff at OU, and I try to impress upon students, even in the early stages when you're doing the conceptual work and trying to find product market fit, you should be at least playing the mental game of how are competitors going to come at me and how am I going to fend them off? And I'm not saying it's, 30% of your mind share, but you should be putting some of your mind share. You should at least play through those scenarios, because occasionally when you start to do it, you're like, I have nothing. I have no way to stop people, that want to come in 10% cheaper than me, or that want to attack me this way or that way. And so anyway, that's what I advise. And we do it obviously with our business, all 4 of us. But I think the earlier you can build that muscle, the better it is for you.
It's also very dependent on the stage that your business is in, right? Like there's various times where you need to focus on various things. Like I love when Sean keeps it real with people. It's like, you're at a certain stage, just spend your money on Meta, right? Like stop wasting your time. There's different levels of this as things progress. Once you get product market fit, I mean, if you have like a great idea, you should protect your IP right away, of course, right? Like, oh, don't wait, definitely don't wait. Um, but yeah, I mean, the business evolves, and you have to think about moats differently over time as well. Like, let's not forget that the way we think about moats is a lot different than someone who's like a startup, or B 5 million in revenue, or 50 million. It's different.
Dude. Yeah, I mean, I like even just between Pillowcase and Lomi, like our two brands, like our two businesses, the IP and moat build, everything is so different between those two companies. There's certain overlap, but like, my God, or like Lomi, I got to look like 5 to 10 years into the future around some of this stuff.
Yeah, I have the opposite advice of Mike. Mike said,
I love it.
he's like, when you start, think about your moat, think of how you're going to build competitive advantages. And my thing is, when you start, figure out how to you pay yourself. It's like I think the realistic thing is, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't have a moat. Like, sorry, listener, love you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to our Slack and posting jobs on our job board and all that beautiful stuff you're doing, and coming to see us at the Send Lane, September 18th roundtable, whatever. You don't have a moat. If I'm, think of the moats in the world. Apple can turn on semiconductor manufacturing if they want to. Amazon has a warehouse in every city in America. Those are pretty big fucking moats. I'm out here bragging that I spent $1 million on a website. I don't really got a moat, right? I might have.
Relatively speaking, no.
Yeah, I have a moat that can keep grasshoppers out, right? And like, it's just the reality. If you listen to this, it's like, yeah, you're manufacturing in China, you found your supplier on Alibaba, you're not doing anything hard, and it feels hard every single day. You're showing up and you're putting hours and effort into your business. Not very fucking hard. Like,
but Sean,
you're not.
Hang on. I need to like push back a bit. Is this not the fucking problem with consumer? Like, right there is like, nobody is doing anything hard, or few people are.
Yeah, dude, I'm 100%.
I go the other way.
Do something
it's
hard,
really
and then to Jason's
hard.
point, protect
it's
it.
really hard. That's the whole point. It's freaking hard because it's so hard to protect. Like, I'm going to go the other way, Sean, and be like, at what everybody's doing, if you don't have a moat, your life is exponentially harder. You're constantly being attacked. You can't sleep at night without somebody coming at your castle. It's like that. This is one of the reasons why I think it's important to at least conceptually prepare yourself for the fact that, hey, you hit a home run, you're successful, great. Now everyone's coming for you. Be ready for that. And I think, Matt, to your point, it's like, I think consumer is, the ease is what makes it hard, is the point that I would make, right? Yes, it's easy to find 5 people in China that'll make your stuff, but that's what makes it hard to keep selling it 18 months or 36 months in the future, because everybody else knows that.
Yeah, I think, Sean, I agree, Sean. I think that what you're saying is like, just learn how to do the thing first. I do agree with Mike, though, that I think like very quickly, and Jason, like very quickly, like, I came up with something new and novel. You should think about how you're going to protect that.
Right. I just want to take a historical example. Okay. So I don't believe Switzerland's ever been successfully invaded by an outside force. Right. And that's because it's very hard to invade Switzerland. They are in the mountains. Right. And do you guys know about the Comanches? They're a Native American tribe that was on the plains of Texas. They got their asses kicked by every other tribe surrounding them over and over again, because the plains of Texas are hot, flat, and dry. There wasn't a good place to build a moat, right? So I'm oversimplifying the history of the Comanches. They ended up being total badasses because they got horses and they were super good at riding them. But horses coming to the New World, they just got destroyed. And we're talking about moats. We're talking about the allegory of defense here. And the reason why in consumer it's so hard to defend is because you're the Comanches on the plains. There's marauders left and right, dude. Mm-hmm. You, like, Mike has built a little bit of a sand castle and some dunes, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, Amazon and Apple have built the monopolies of Switzerland. Super fucking hard to invade. And that's just like, you know, I agree. You should look for moats, right? And I spend money trying to develop moats and build moats. And the best thing we have for moats is brand, right? There's a reason why, you know, I think premium products win more in D2C. But just in the relative scheme of things, the reason there's so many people attacking us is because it's easy to get into. It's very hard to be successful.
Yeah,
Like
brand and time are
Yeah.
great modes. Yeah.
I think I'm understanding your point more, Sean, because I think what you're saying is you make money by being great at doing something, even if it's hard, even if there is a lot of competition. And it's easier to build the skills of being good at doing something and knowing how to make money than it is to build a defensible moat. Because when you have a defensible moat, you can make money even if you're not as good at doing something because you have these natural kind of built-in advantages. And I think if that's what you're saying, I think it's a good point. And it's right. We don't want perfect to be the enemy of the good. I would never want anybody to hear me say that. Like, hey, if you can't figure out how to make an Amazon level moat, then you should never launch your product. It's like, good luck. Nobody will ever launch anything, right? But
well, not in consumer.
Not in consumer. Yeah, consumer. When you were talking about that, Sean, I was like, consumer is like Asia and risk. Like anytime you play risk, if you start going after Asia, you are going to lose. It's written that.
Well, hang on. Let me ask you this then. I want all three of you guys to ring in. Start with you, Jason. Is there a consumer brand, or maybe not even a brand, a company in consumer, a big one, probably an old one, that you guys could point to say, like, done a pretty good job, like super defensible. Lots of people have taken a run at them. Nobody's really taken them down. Like, who comes to mind when you think like, shit, they'd like their competitive advantage? They've stacked up a bunch of things. You can't point to one thing, but like, who is it?
I got mine. But
I know.
come
I got
on.
a funny feeling.
All right,
I've got mine too. Locked in.
I'm going to have one in a second. I'm trying to decide which one I want to use. So, Sean, do yours first.
Oh, he has too many good thoughts. That's what's going on with Jason.
That's the issue. Jason's head is full of all the good stuff.
I might surprise you when I say Patagonia. If you're talking about single brands, I mean, I think there's a couple other really great ones I'm leaving there for you guys to take, but Patagonia has just stayed true to who their customer is the entire time. They built an amazing business that does $1 billion+ in revenue, and they don't give a fuck what Lululemon or Viore or even REI asks of them. They're like, we're doing exactly what we want to do. I think they're the unsinkable ship. They're the American version of the LVMHs. They're a 100+ year legacy brand being built. So that's my guess.
I did not notice this when I was thinking up this answer, but to me it's Nike. And the transformational thing with Nike was that they got certain key athletes, one in particular, locked in on an exclusive deal. And that's another example of a moat. They were the brand that got Michael Jordan to be exclusively with them, and it fundamentally altered the level of moat and the business that they would turn into. They were okay as a running shoe company up until that point, but it's this massive inflection point, and it was because they got exclusive. They were the exclusive footwear provider of the most recognized athlete in the world.
Jason.
Well, I was gonna say Gucci, but that might be too easy. I mean, it might be too easy, but they've stood the test of time, right? They've been around for a very long time. You can lump a lot of those luxury guys like Louis Vuitton, but I mean, Gucci's been around forever. The G's, what they do, like their products are excellent. I mean, but they're like not that different than YSL and all of they managed to maintain relevancy, and I think it has to do with a lot of it. They've built a brand over time, and they have
culture, man.
Excellent
They've stayed
people.
so
I was about to say excellent people because their design is like classic yet on the edge. Like you get the weird stuff. Like I was at a party in the Hamptons, and what's his name? Doogie Howser and How I Met Your Mother. Why am I blanking on his name? I'm like low blood sugar right now. Neil Patrick Harris. It was at his house, and he's wearing like a silk Gucci suit. It was crazy, and I'm like,
love it.
I'm like, could I rock that suit? Don't know, but then you have also like the classic stuff, like the classic shoes and all that. So they still relevant. They a lot of the really good fashion brands are good at that. Like they're good at like pushing the envelope on part of their line, but not the rest. There's the classics, and that like keeps them relevant.
Yeah.
I was just going to say the luxury fashion houses, I mean, are a great answer, but they are actually the best at understanding when to not be relevant, right? The reason why Gucci isn't a flagship brand, it's the flagship brand under a holding company, is because at some point you have overexposure in luxury and you need to sunset a brand for a little bit. I mean, LVMH has done it countless times, right? And I think it's going to happen to Hermes next. Hermes is the single most valuable standalone company on earth. Maybe there's an argument Nike's more, but I've already written a podcast. I've already written a newsletter about that. And Hermes will sunset as a brand because you cannot stay cool forever. But yeah, the luxury fashion houses are a great answer, Jason.
I mean, Hermes, when you say sunset, what they do is they actually back out of public, like they back out of the limelight, right? Because these companies have such a long view of the world because they've been around for so long. Like, I read up on this the other day. So I built the house that I'm in right now 2 years ago, and one of the things I did was I bought this Italian stove. Jason, you ever hear of this company, Bertazzoni?
No,
Dude,
send me the picture. Maybe I'll recognize
okay.
it.
1882 is when this company started. It's 141 years old. They do hundreds, I don't know, 500, 700 million. There's some big ass number.
Yeah, that's good marketing on their part, by the way. I would fact check that. I would fact check it.
It's freaking insane. They've been around forever. And there's a bunch of these companies
like that in that space. There's a couple really old ones in that space. I mean,
really impressive.
North America recently.
The one that impresses me the most, though, from a pure holy shit, is Nespresso. That is a beast of a business.
Yep.
Came out with a device, had a razor blade, but then had their business model was on its own innovative, right? From day one, I think it's you can buy the machine anywhere, but you can only buy the pods from them.
Yeah.
And it's all subscription. And they do 4 or 5 billion a year in straight up subscription revenue. And the machines are just yes, you can buy that shit in a Target. And they make a Breville one, and so they took the Nespresso thing, they licensed it out, did partnerships with all the other appliance guys to make their version of an espresso machine, but they kept the pod business. That is a freaking stroke of genius.
They have an end cap in Target that I think they pay $1 million or $2 million every fourth quarter just for that end cap. It's just we're going to buy that real estate. We've got the money to do it. We're going to own it.
Yeah. You know what? But I do want to talk about something that happened yesterday, which is relevant, right? So our number one supplier sends an email yesterday morning to say that why are we sending? We sent you instructions for the new bank account already. Why are you sending to our old bank account? Okay.
No, Jason.
So
no.
No. We caught this.
I've got Surrender Cobra on
Dude,
tap.
I'm from Staten Island. You think they're gonna get over on me? Come on. So I immediately said to my team, call her, our person, and then the people, and I copied the person, and they replied saying, oh, such and such, where it's not timing in Korea, because they're in Korea actually, and so they tried to get us to call the different, they were going to call us, and anyway, it was really good though. I mean, it was really good. It was really convincing. So people have been getting beat by this stuff. I mean, it's crazy. We have a lot of other kinds of scams from quote unquote customers. We had one recently, people are buying big sets and using a different card. And it's the amount of fraud that's out there is incredible. And everyone, so the panzerism is today is to everyone needs to be absolutely paranoid about fraud right now, and on every level. And even when it drives me crazy when the bank calls me when I'm trying to send wires and did you do this? Did you call the provider, and did you check the account? And but I mean, we could have easily sent millions of dollars yesterday, millions. So everybody needs to be incredibly vigilant. We are buying probably between 12 and $15 million in product a month right now as we stock up for Q4. And I mean, we could have lost $10 million. Like it was pretty. It was literally, the email was from the supplier who we've been talking to for 5 years. Like, this is our number one person, and it's not like it was somebody new to change. It's like, and there's weird stuff going on in overseas now, and anyway, and so it's like, it actually made sense to me that you want to change the bank account. I'm like, no, put this down. Like, don't do it. But we were like one wrong decision away from multiple millions of dollars being gone.
We've all had that. It's like a near-death experience.
Like, wait, like we're in that world now, guys. We're like AI. Like,
it's coming. Not even
coming,
voicemail.
man.
Just wait until you can have a real conversation, and you know, Jason's controller is having a conversation with Jason, but it's not Jason. You know,
right?
That's what's coming.
Oh, Sean, in office, dude, your remote versus in office thing, it's all gonna die in this world, because like Jason's gonna win because he's like, I got 6 people that's sitting next to me, and they can't fake that shit.
No, dude, just everything requires 5 Slack approvals until they can hack into my Slack.
Well, great thoughts, guys. I think that for sure one of the things that we've come up with today is that there's a lot of different types of moats, and they're really freaking hard to build. But number one, be a great operator, and then number two, use that excellence to figure out how to protect what you've created and be deliberate about it. We are signing off. Thanks everybody for joining with us. If you haven't, pound the subscribe button and join us every week.